Thanks for coming out on a cold, blustery day. Chairman Yonker is not here yet. He's running a few minutes late, so for the purposes of continuing forward with our scheduled meeting this evening, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Committee of the Whole, and for the record, it is 4:34, Tuesday, March 13, 2018. Item 2 would be review the 2019 fiscal year budget. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to our manager. This is a continuance from last evening's 3-hour-long budget session. And we're super ready to dive into tonight's 6-hour meeting.
Well, I think the good news is, we got through all the big budgets last night. But not to take anything away, because all the budgets today are equally as important, but there's not probably the depth and breadth of issues tonight or this afternoon. So basically the plan is, the first part of this meeting, Trustee Panito and staff are going to lead us through essentially the admin portion of the budget, which really will consist, I'm going to talk about the manager's budget and the elected officials' budget. Pat Carr and our new IT director is going to talk about the IT budget, and then the clerk will lead us through her proposed budget. Then Trustee Mangan and Brad will lead us through the finance, and probably the most detailed tonight may be just the whole discussion of the TIF and some of the obviously important expenditures that we have there. And then marketing and economic development. We know Trustee Berg she did tell me she was going to be delayed. So let's see on the timing of this, but that would be after that with Donna and then Paula, and then Trustee Glotz with community development, and then just a wrap up. So so I don't know, Trustee Panito, did you want to say anything to kick off with the admin?
Well, as you know, I have someplace to be at 6, so the sooner
Yes.
we get going, the better. If you could kind of go through it quickly, there's a lot of stuff
Yes.
going on. So
We're ready to go. So let me just talk. So again, to get you on pages, we'll go in page order this time. So the admin budget and admin committee. The first page in that, page 317, is really the mayor and trustees budget. So again, last night we primarily went over capital improvements, personnel changes, and there was special sheets for that. There's really not anything for the elected officials' budget because there's not really any new changes. So the one thing that may jump out at you, and this is really just a placement issue, is that there's an increase in contractual services from 10,000 to 41. That is simply moving the lobbyist fees. They used to be in our overhead budget, and my recommendation was, since the lobbyist is really essentially works directly for the board, typically this is where you see this. So that's the reason for the major bump in that line item for the elected officials' budget. The manager's budget, there's a couple changes, both in personnel as well as a couple of additional requests that we have. The first two we talked about a little bit last night. If you remember right, the Village Hall staffing study that we did a year or so ago recommended that the deputy HR position, which has been part-time for some time, be made full-time. For a community our size, even with 2 people, that's still a pretty lean operation, but with the number of personnel, union, and other issues, I think that's the type of thing that will, I think, provide better service, to our employees, will allow us to turn around recruitments quicker, and I think just provide a higher level of service to our employees in terms of training and other issues. The second personnel request is and of course, obviously, the part-time position would go away, is that we're looking at a management analyst position. Currently, we have an interim position. That position would go away under this proposal. This position would really service HR, the manager's office, and actually service other departments. This is a very typical position in towns of our size. Orland Park has it, and it allows basically us to bring in someone at a relatively beginning level salary to help us with research, writing reports, project management, and a variety of other things. And again, this is a very similar structure. If you looked at Orland Park, they have a manager, assistant city manager, and an analyst position. But again, I think our goal here would also, because we don't have, a lot of communities will have analyst positions in various departments. We don't have this, so our anticipation is that this would be a position that could help out police, fire, community development, and special projects also. So that's the main two personnel requests. I'm going to let Denise talk a little bit about, we have actually two training proposals, and again, this was part of our discussion during the strategic planning session, which is we have money set aside for performance evaluation training as well as some additional management training. So Denise, if you want to touch on those.
Sure. The performance evaluation training is one that we're evaluating. There have been various vendors that have offered to provide those levels of training. One that we had interviewed with and met with last year. And so that is an organization that we're seeking out some additional assistance from. The additional training that is offered that we're considering for department heads and mid-level managers is the Lean and Six Sigma training that is offered through NIU. They have provided various training opportunities to approve those kinds of things that the village manager just mentioned, and consistent with those internal and external facing functions to improve performance and to help develop our members, our staff, to get to the level of performance and that we're looking for this town, as well as for succession planning.
So those are the major initiatives in the manager's and mayor's office. Before Pat and Mike talk a little bit about IT, is there any specific questions on those budgets?
Is that performance review piece, would that happen in the next year, you're saying, right?
Yes.
Nice to see some stuff that was talked about in our strategic planning and training and evaluations being put forth. So nice job, Denise.
Okay, Mr. Carr?
Yes. Well, this year, as the manager talked about the staffing study, one of the things that we did implement was the hiring of an IT manager. We have Mike Thomas here. And as part of that, the IT department was moved underneath the manager's department. Our line item is, our budget line item budget's on page 335. And again, relatively flat, no increase from last year. And what I'll have is Mike to come up and just hit on a few of the capital items of importance.
Yeah, you wouldn't mind using the podium. It's a little hard to hear up here. More so for the older people.
Hi, Mike Thomas. Nice to meet all of you. Pat, do you want me to hit on any of the items on the general fund, or just go right to the?
Just to the capital.
Okay.
Yeah, capital on page 340.
Okay, on 340, I'm just going to hit some of the higher ticket items. People might be interested in those more than anything. The highest one is down at the bottom, is disaster recovery system. That will allow us to duplicate our existing system today, so that if, in the event of something happening to the village hall, we could still run all of our business continuity plans, all our software, and everything else would be able to run from another site. It's either going to be the PD, the EOC, or maybe one of the fire department stations, like local out there, just so that weather or something wouldn't go sweeping through and hit both locations or something like that. So it will allow us to stay up across the board. Other items are the Office 365 licensing and add-ins. We assume about 450 employees, roughly, or users. This will allow us to locate all of our suites, our Office 365 products and tools in a suite, and then kick those out to all our employees. The advantage here is it saves us a lot of money on licensing, and it will save us a lot of money on support. Going up the list, there's an item for 120, it's a replacement of the 911 CAD system. The CAD system today, this is all almost entirely hardware, and it's end-of-life servers, and we cannot update the software to catch up to current versions unless we update the hardware. So that, we figure in public safety, that's kind of money well spent. Let's see, going up, cashiering, Tyler Cashiering. We've been trying to get this done for a couple of years. This is an old system. It's called Core. We'd like to upgrade the cashiering equipment to Tyler, and this will allow us to accept chips instead of just credit cards and checks and cash, so it'll be an advantage and it'll be a little more secure environment for the residents. Remote desktop services, RDS, $50,000. This has to be done within the next 2 years due to an upgrade from Microsoft. And what this does is it allows us to push out our desktops to all our users from one site, which is our Citrix backbone. I think that's about it for the high. Oh, one more. The workforce management or workforce mobilization, MDM, is $42,000. That's basically, they call it mobile device management. So now that we're getting a lot of cell phones, a lot of tablets, this will allow us to move to a more mobile environment, and it'll allow the IT guys, myself and my team, to track the items, to segregate them off and containerize different sections so that if the phone is gone or stolen or confiscated, we can wipe it out. So it won't be, it's basically securing it. That's really all I have. Is there questions from anyone?
I just think it's great on a lot of the stuff you're adding in, because
Cool.
I think, that's one of the things we've been talking about for, last year, about just upgrading and being able to have the disaster recovery and really all the things, everything that you have in here. I think the fact that we're the Office 365, all the things you're doing are just taking us to the next level. So
Great. Glad you
for
like
you
it.
and your staff, I think it's a great step in the right direction.
Yeah, they do a real good job. I'm really impressed with the staff that was here when I started, to be honest. Anybody else?
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Chairman's here. Chairman, you take the reins. Who else is next? Go ahead.
Well, I think under trustee Piniel's committee, the clerk would be the last budget, so clerk's office.
Okay, I have 3 specific requests. The first being on pages 328 and 329. The first request is for a full-time FOIA FOIA compliance coordinator. This position would expand the current position of FOIA coordinator. In addition to the duties of FOIA coordinator, responsibilities would also include assisting the deputy clerk in processing meeting notices, agendas, and minutes for the village board, commission, and committee meetings, as well as the processing of ordinances, resolutions, and agreements. This position would also attend certain village board, committee, and commission meetings. The individual for which we have considered this position is already part-time, receiving benefits, almost at the full-time level. So in keeping with the staffing study that was conducted, by eliminating part-time positions, we can eliminate 2 part-time positions by creating this full-time position and save at least $12,000. So additionally, we have a few part-time and other employees in the clerk's office that are at the age where they're considering retirement. So this individual will also help with training and the succession plan. Are there any questions about this item? Okay, moving on to the second item on pages 330 and 331. I'm requesting a software upgrade for agenda and minutes management with a citizen participation component. So this will not only allow us to create more streamlined agendas, it will make the overall agenda creation process much more efficient across departments. The citizen participation component would allow citizens who cannot attend board meetings to access the agenda online, and then submit questions for any particular item. Other citizens that are viewing this could also add comments, and the board then would also have these questions and raised by the citizens prior to board meetings, so they can address them. The cost of that software is $29,600. $3,400 is estimated to be the management cost. I think this would be a great way to increase citizen engagement and bring us more into 21st century technologically, anyway. Are there any questions or concerns about this item?
Is this an add-on of what we've been building on for the last couple of years for the clerk's office with software?
Somewhat. This one's a little different.
This one's different. It's more of an upgrade, and then the citizen participation component is an add-on to that. The company is one we have used in the past. We've received many good references from other villages that use their software, and specifically this citizen participation component.
Thank you, Clerk.
Okay, I have one more request, and that is a tablet for meetings, and this would basically be for the deputy clerk, who has been tied to her PC for too long, and a tablet would greatly assist her, just being more mobile and portable. The cost of that would be about $800. She would also need a keyboard so she can do minutes, different locations. That would be $200, and then the internet service is estimated at $440 for a total cost of $1,440.
Well deserved.
We'll get
Yes.
into that, sure.
Yes.
And that's all I have.
Does that wrap it up for the?
I wanted to mention a couple other things. You also, and just want to make you aware, a lot of the commission budgets are also under budget and admin from civil service, veterans, bus, pay seniors in sister cities. There's really not any significant changes other than under a bus service. There is a new bus.
Yeah, but the maintenance program on one of our village buses is kind of exceeded
Yes.
the value of it, so.
So we will have a new
Yeah.
senior bus this year.
We're gonna have a new senior bus
Yes.
for all of our seniors. So that's why you'll see the increase.
Yes,
Why not?
yeah.
Sorry, I should have identified that earlier.
But that's it.
Okay.
So next would be finance, which would be the,
Dave, I had a question
oh,
for you.
okay.
On 317, halfway down, why did for 3 years, it looks like in a row, we're right around 10,000. Why did the life insurance go up to 36,000?
Well, it's the health and life insurance, so the 3 years before that, that was, I believe, probably just what we spent. So, each of the trustees has the ability to sign up for it, so that's the budget this year.
Oh, so that's life insurance and health insurance. Okay. Yeah, because it was budgeted for 11, it comes to 36.
Any other questions?
So, yeah, treasurer's office and the TIFs.
Okay, the finance department budget, there's really no changes there. It's essentially a maintenance budget. There is a staff accountant that has been recommended for coming on board mid-year. We are starting at page 295, 296. Also falling under here are the year-end transfers on page 298. These are all the what is reflected there are the normal year-end transfers of funds from our revenue streams to be set aside into certain reserves and our debt service payments. Nothing much there. Economic incentives, I think, do we want to talk about that here or under community development?
My recommendation, some of the incentives in here are related to the new playbook, but maybe we can talk about the ones that are not playbook.
The majority of on page 299, the majority of the items there are related to incentive agreements that we have had for economic development to bring new businesses to Tinley Park and to expand businesses to Tinley Park. I think if I didn't hit on it last night when I talked about our revenue projections, I should mention that approximately 40% of our sales tax revenue is committed to support is tied to incentives, bringing new business to the community. And what you have here is what we anticipate having to be paid out during the upcoming fiscal year in relation to those agreements. So if there's any questions, I can try to answer those. Otherwise, we can move on.
We don't have anything listed for the Bremen Cash Store.
That would be a TIF incentive, and that is not amongst this on this part here. No. Hotel tax, a portion of that is, that's page 301. A portion of that, 1% of our, just shy of 1% of our hotel tax goes to support the Chicago Southland Convention and Visitors Bureau. 2% goes to support debt service in relation to the convention center, and a portion of that also supports our marketing department efforts and tourism programs. That, I think, is the end of what I have to talk about at the moment. Doesn't look like TIF is in here. Let's go through the other stuff and we can come back to that.
Dave, are we obligated to the Convention and Visitors Bureau? Are we under any type of contract or that? I'd like the board to evaluate our membership in that if we could, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually, you may remember the Roger Brooks Action Plan had a number of recommendations, and one of them was to evaluate our membership. The short answer is we're not tied into it, but we can certainly make that a goal of the manager's office and marketing department
Is it a revenue stream type situation, Dave, on that? That was one of the questions I had on it. So how do they determine the cost? I mean, is it determined by what revenue we receive off of it, or?
Yes.
And how
Yes,
do we determine that?
There is an agreement that goes back some time that we pay 0.95% of 1% of the hotel tax. So just shy of 1% of the hotel tax is paid off. So whatever we receive, we in turn, once a month, turn that around.
So it's based on our revenue, not based on what they support us.
Correct.
It's the opposite. Okay. Thank
We'll
you.
have a discussion on that soon.
We'll do an evaluation.
We have looked
at the numbers a couple of years ago, and I think it's just a matter of freshening them up.
We review it periodically.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to go through TIF later? Or you don't want TIF
yes,
stuff?
yes.
Okay. Why don't we go back to TIF, I think, a little bit later, so I don't know if Trustee Berg is ready to just talk about marketing and...
Oh, Donna's here, right?
Yeah, no, I know, just at least, yeah.
That's the next one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right, okay.
And the marketing budget, which starts on page 302, the greatest change you'll see is that on page 304, the Main Street Commission budget is there, and we have essentially moved all of the events that were previously housed under the Main Street Commission into the marketing department budget. So that's where you see that those line items are a little askew. But basically, the budget is very similar. Is by way of quick recap, the events will remain the same. We are planning on adding 3 sing-along musicals on Friday evenings in the summer and celebrating the National Music Day on June 21st, which is, of course, very supportive of our brand. We also have been requested by the VFW to expand our cruise nights from Memorial Day through Labor Day, which actually essentially adds 1 date to that event. And then looking at some modifications and enhancements to our Benches on the Avenue program, and potentially considering a musical chairs companion program. On the branding side, and if I could direct your attention to the CAP requests on page 309, in addition to the carryovers we're requesting some additional funding for the master plan for downtown. And as you know, we will be completing our wayfinding planning phase at the end of this August, and so we have put in a request to do phase 1 of 2 phases for some fabrication and installation of the wayfinding signage. Beyond that, on the branding side, we will continue our Harmony Square planning, and we intend to print a best of, which we're going to call the Tinley Park High Notes brochure, and some additional branded street amenities in our downtown, as well as rolling out a small business engagement program with some co-op advertising with our hospitality-related businesses. And you will see branded banners going up at key intersections and support of our economic development incentives, which include soliciting an orchestrated business mix in our downtown. These are all items that are identified within our action plan. And then on the communication side, we will be doing a council chambers retrofit, hopefully, to eliminate some of these cords and stuff you see around and the cameras so that we can have some mounted cameras in here. Some printing of a water bill newsletter that we'd like to do quarterly with the movement of the exchange. This provides an opportunity for us to push some additional information out to our residents. And so we've talked about the educational plan for the pending water rate increase, some community engagement initiatives that would up our Facebook likes and our Twitter followers and our community email subscribers, and then some additional engagement initiatives and a citizen survey in the year. So that's what you'll see that this budget will reflect. The only other capital item is a request for some, which is also on page 307, is some equipment requests for a tablet, 2 laptops to enhance our video editing capabilities. Any?
Okay, and with that, then go to the economic development. So, Paul, are you going to? Sure.
So we begin on page 372. With the hiring of Patrick, he sort of has taken ownership of the budget this year. Last year, we were kind of moving from the prior budgets. And we moved some items around, some new subscriptions, I would say probably, and none of these are really all that significant. We have a 3.3% increase overall for the whole budget, so you'll see a lot of decreases. Some increases, for example, in printing, which is just our new playbook printing. And some of the dues and subscriptions, he has changed what we have traditionally done in terms of subscriptions to some of the economic development programs that assist him in providing some statistics. For example, there's one called Size Up that he's changed that's added $4,000 to the budget, but he has significantly decreased others. So a lot of our memberships, like Will County CED, is still in there at $10,000. But overall, with the economic development budget, there's really very little difference how we've handled it in the past. And no capital.
Touch on the playbook.
I'm sorry, what?
Playbook?
Under the finance department or the I thought you wanted me to go straight to economic development, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So under the finance, you're talking about the finance
Yeah.
incentives, the incentives?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. So those are on page, I just had it. 290 something, 290, yes, 299. I'm sorry, Dave. The 299, line item 115, 116, 117, and 18, and then dropping down to 141. Those are the 5 playbook incentives with total amounts of $350,000. We had 70 in the retail incentive, 140 in the code compliance, 15 in the landscape, 55 in the signage, and then another 70 in the facade improvement program. They have caps on them, so depending on which line item we're looking at, for the signage and the landscape, we have $5,000 caps, so you could give up to 11 signage grants and up to 3 landscaping grants. The larger ones, the facade, code compliance, and retail, are capping out at $35,000 apiece. So again, those are all at the top end, but that would give you a maximum of 2 if somebody took the full amount for facade grants. You could get 4 code compliance grants at $35,000 as a cap, and then you could get 2 retail grants at $35,000. But with those sums, obviously, if someone's coming in for less, you'll be able to spread your money around a little bit more. The final rollout on that, we're looking at Trustee Berg's meeting on the 27th.
Okay, anything in economic development? No, I think we could probably roll right into community development.
It's 2 economic developments.
I want to go back to the playbook again. I think it's a great idea. I just want to reiterate it again from last night. To me, I think it's about priority, and I think that money would be spent better with hiring more police.
We're going to continue moving forward. What's going on? We all sleeping today?
Ready to go forward with community
Let's go.
development?
Okay.
No, but he wanted me to go back up under finance.
Is community development ready to go?
Are you doing community
Yes.
development? All right.
Okay, so for community development, we can begin on page 367. Very little there except the sharing of 6 months of our new planning manager's salary, and then my salary after 6 months moves over into the planning department. On page 368, we're talking about the building department. Overall, 0.1% change. Very little overall changes, except that over the last couple of years, because of the shortage of staff, we've really had to limit the amount of training. So now that we're getting up to speed with our staffing, I'm looking to get back on track and make sure they keep all their certifications. So that's where you'll see some of the increases there. Looking at page 370 for planning. As I've mentioned, probably the largest increase is my salary as I move from community development section into planning. That's service contracts, line item 72750. The other change, probably most significant would be the training budget, which is increased by $2,000. But again, trying to get the AICP accreditation for our new planning manager, and make sure that I get both the planning manager and the senior planner up to speed on some of our Adobe software training.
How long does that training take?
Pardon?
How long does that training take? Is it a
It's
long process?
2 or 3 days.
Oh, okay.
And then moving on to page 372, as I was mentioning before, the economic development budget. Again, overall, we just have a 3.3% increase, and I'll just repeat what I was saying before because I was on another page. But probably the most significant is just a $2,000 increase is the printing, anticipating playbook printing for there. I think Patrick did a good job of narrowing down those subscriptions and memberships to those that he thinks are absolutely necessary. We also want to make sure he keeps his accreditations up, and so he has some training in there as well. The commission budgets are as is. So for capital, that's probably my most exciting, for me anyway. If you go to page 376, three here? Oh, for overall, okay. Software obviously is the biggest initiative. We had a rollover $125,000 from last year. We've added $25,000 to that for this year in light of the RFP proposals. So we've got that narrowed down to 4 firms, so we feel pretty good about those numbers. And we have our annual maintenance in there at 50. And then there's some ancillary hardware for tablets and so forth to facilitate the new software. So there's a total budget of $215,440 for a capital expense.
Is that 50 forever, or is it just
Pardon?
is it 50 for a period of time?
That's
on the
There
maintenance?
is, the first year is higher and then it graduates out.
Okay, over time.
But there will always be
Something.
a licensing maintenance figure in there.
And with the permitting software, your game plan is somewhere down the road with the tablets to have everyone using the tablets that are in the
Right
field.
away. Right
Using in the
away.
field, so it goes right back to,
I think we'll instantly be using them outside as soon as they're trained, but you're going to see some not only increased efficiencies and ability to be more proactive in our code enforcement and property maintenance, but increased transparency and better customer service, because we're going to do some, it's cloud-based, and we're going to do, allow contractors and residents to apply online.
okay.
So we're pretty excited about that. And then, if you look, I guess, individually on a sort of a smaller scale, you've heard me talk many times about running out of space. I'd really like to get my entire staff, community development staff, into one location. Right now, we're spread out a little bit in the Village Hall. So on page 376, I don't know why my contacts are having trouble tonight. This is a small kind of renovation. Basically, it's a hallway right now that I'll be renovating, or we'll be renovating into two stations or two spaces. I've been able, all through last year and finishing this next year, of doing a lot of scanning for our documents, and we've been able to get rid of, up to this point, about 10 filing cabinets, and we'll be able to get rid of some more, and that just gives us a little more space. We're not putting anybody inside of a filing cabinet, but we're putting them in place of where a filing cabinet was. And that's pretty much it. It's office furniture for $1,200. But after that, we'll be packed. That's all I have.
You ready? Okay. All right, we need to go back to tips.
If you go back to the last tab in the binder, capital recommendations, you've got on the first page there, on page 421, is just a reconciliation of assuming that the draft budget as has been proposed is recommended to move forward. There are some adjustments that need to be made to the general fund budget. With those adjustments incorporated into the budget for some line item adjustments and personnel that has been recommended, we will still end up with a balanced budget where revenues are equal to or exceed the expenditures, which is the position we'd like to see. Same thing with the water and sewer operations and maintenance fund. And also in relation to our regional water system through Oak Lawn, we are in the process of splitting the water and sewer operations into three divisional areas of the water retail, sewer retail, and water wholesale. And commuter parking lot, same thing, with adjustments. All of the three primary operating funds will have a balanced budget as proposed. If we flip to, we'll skip 422, but 422 basically does the same type of reconciliation with all of the different cap requests that have been put forth over the last 2 days in the proposed budget. Where we would be able to pay for that, and basically all of the capital requests have a funding home to pay for them. So that is taken care of. And so our major, on page 423, our major annual roadway program, the pavement management program, that is being funded as usual from multiple sources, with motor fuel tax, vehicle stickers, and red light fines, with a very small supplement coming from the surtax fund to make up a small shortfall. Water and sewer, there is about $1.3 million that we expect to transfer at the end of this year into the reserve funds, and that will fund the requested sewer projects that are proposed for the upcoming year. On page 424, we start to get into the TIF districts. We start with the Oak Park Avenue TIF. As was mentioned, this TIF is coming to an end during the next fiscal year. There will be some funds expected to be remaining, and on this page we've got a recap of some of the projects that we are proposing to move forward with to utilize those funds to make some improvements at the convention center facility. Listed there are replacing some of the smoke hatches on the roof of the convention center, replacing the parking lot lighting with LED fixtures, resurfacing 183rd Street between Oak Park Avenue and Harlem, resurfacing the west parking lot of the convention center, installing sidewalks and/or walking paths along 183rd Street, a carriage walk along Convention Center Drive, and a short piece of sidewalk between Convention Center Drive and the Convention Center building. This is to facilitate residents and patrons of the convention center that perhaps are staying at other hotels or who are staying at an event, doing an event at the convention center and wish to venture out beyond the facility to other restaurants and so forth, or the other hotels. Also an extension of the bike path, of a bike path along, in lieu of sidewalks along Oak Park Avenue from about 178th Street to South Point Drive, and the potential land acquisition of some property along Convention Center Drive.
Ray, can you just go over a little bit too on the reserve for tax adjustments, just so they understand what that is?
Yes, thank you. Good point. As the TIF is now coming to an end, that means that our revenue stream of incremental taxes for the TIF will also be ending. However, there are taxpayers that have filed appeals of their tax bills with the Property Tax Appeals Board and through the court system, and those appeals oftentimes can take many years before they settle out. And what would happen is that our TIF is closed, the money has been spent, and the county will come back to us and say, there's been an adjustment here, you owe us money back. And in order to, and because at that point we wouldn't have anything, to avoid that potential situation, we're proposing to reserve about $1 million for future tax adjustments that are likely still pending. And we are aware of, we just had 3 years of adjustments dating back to 2013 that just came through this past fiscal year that totaled nearly $500,000 of adjustment. So we know that there are other things still in the pipeline in regard to appeals, and thus we're setting aside some monies to that eventuality. Main Street North TIF. When we established the Main Street North TIF, we entered into an agreement with Community Consolidated School District 146 that we would set aside 17% of the incremental revenues that could be used for capital projects within the district for their schools. So we continue to set those monies aside. Should they wish to call on those funds, we would have that ready and available. Main Street North TIF is also going to be transferring some funds for finishing off the Freedom Pond amenities, the walking path and the benches and so forth that go along with that. On page 425, Main Street South TIF, again, this one I would look at as a combination of Main Street South and the proposed New Bremen TIF, because simultaneously with the creation of the New Bremen TIF, the Main Street South TIF will be closed. Similar to what I just spoke to with the Oak Park Avenue TIF, there will be setting aside some funds for tax adjustments, and there is some outstanding debt service that needs to be addressed. There is some land acquisitions that are still being looked at. There's the remainder of the banging gavel incentive that has been previously approved, and there is the infrastructure improvements associated with the South Street development area, as well as request for the Blackstone Lofts and related infrastructure improvements there. Those two items are not listed on this sheet, but they will be added into the final documents. And that summarizes the impacts with the TIFs. If there's any questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
Okay. So, that's it.
Go ahead.
Just one follow-up from last night. I did talk to Chris King about that $450,000 allocated for the bike path. That was a project, again, as I mentioned last night, that was designed 2 or 3 years ago. We did apply for grants. We did not receive any, but it sounds like it's a purview of the board to really put that project on hold until such time as we can receive a grant. We can do that and shift some of the money. I think what I heard is towards some of the pond work. So we can make that change.
Anything else from the staff and the budget? Chairman, if before we close out the budget session, if you could pass those down for the rest of you. I just had a brief statement just to kind of go over general synopsis of I thought what our evening was last night, just some observations, and I'll also follow up with another one following the discussion we had today. So what I just gave you is basically just like I said, some general observations of how I felt last night went. So after 2 days of review of this village staff budget, I want to thank those who have participated in the conversation. Several issues have been raised regarding the global vision of how this community will continue to grow and prosper. Keeping that in mind, I'm a firm believer in the 3 categorical pillars that make up the nucleus of a local government: safe drinking water and sewers, best-in-class public safety, and state-of-the-art infrastructure. Before I turn it over to the rest of the board members to discuss, I want to highlight what I thought was important to consider as we progress through the budget hearings. The first hashtag here is the memorandum that was included in your binder and discussed on Monday by Treasurer Bettenhausen will be my first focus. Before I continue, allow me to say that the memo was very informative and well put together and is much appreciated, Brad. Much to my surprise, several revenue projections were decreased in what was originally projected revenue. Although I think conservatively when discussing financials, I felt that the projections presented were entirely too conservative for the forecast of the village in certain categories. So 2 points on that. A, I would argue that both the amusement tax and video gaming revenue that were projected at a low percentage, and that we should reevaluate the projections based upon evidence that are continual rising averages. And B, as I've stated in the past, I believe video gaming revenue shall be earmarked for specific uses. I suggest that the board and staff consider allocating and earmarking gaming revenues for the use of the Oak Park Avenue playbook and for the use of public safety, specifically patrol officers. For example, if we use what was projected for 2019, the dollar amount was $625,000 for gaming revenue. I don't see why don't we just take $200,000 of this money, allocate it for the playbook, which is ultimately investing back in the business community with the intentions to increase sales revenues. Taking the remaining balance of $425,000 and putting that towards an increase in patrol officers. For the individual departments that we discussed last night, again, I feel that there is a need to have a focused discussion on the global approach to how we prioritize capital projects of all of our assets. A, public works. Too often this village has deferred major infrastructure projects, example being sewer mains. This is a part of the globalization of the 3 main pillars of a successful village. Ultimately, we must determine if these major projects be funded through the issuance of bonds as opposed to general funds. B is public safety. I would urge the elected trustees to consider adding 4 new patrol officers to our 2019 budget, and also evaluate the overall staff structure of the department, including a full review and discussion of the Northwestern staff study. Make no mistake, this is a high priority amongst the entire elected board. And as we continue to analyze the overall revenue stream in the village, we must continue to strive towards improvements to our public safety facilities, such as our fire departments, fire stations. C, water and sewer. It was mentioned today, per the memo from the treasurer, this village board shall begin to evaluate an increase in our rates for water, due primarily to, as has been mentioned throughout the course of the last year, the Oak Lawn redundancy line, the construction and maintenance program for that, as well as the rate hikes for the city of Chicago and on down. So this is a very large priority and undertaking that the board needs to start discussing. In conclusion, this board has major undertakings and long-lasting decisions based on years of neglect and deferring major capital projects. I know that every one of you are up to the challenge, and I look forward to working with you to see this village succeed. So thank you. That was just my general observations of how last night's budget hearing went, and then I will also update this for today's. But with the understanding, folks, that there's some very large issues that are before us, very serious issues. And I think we need to start discussing this in a global level and not specifically per assets. And come up with a global philosophy on how we want to approach these big projects. So I appreciate your time. Thank you, Chairman.
Brad, where do we go with the board from here as far as the budget is concerned? Do we have time to make any changes that we discussed? I mean, I know we went over a lot in 2 days here. Could you just inform? I know we've got a lot of new members, the process and how it goes from here.
Yes. Well, from here, basically, whatever, if there's any changes that you wish to have made to the budget, we kind of need to have that now, and then the personnel that has been recommended and the capital and so forth that has been recommended, staff will move to put the budget into its final form, where we will then put it, once it's in its final form, it then gets made available to the public, both on our website and in a hard copy available at the clerk's office. There'll be a notice published in the newspaper, I believe, March 24th, is that? Laura, thank you. That it will be available on March 27th. And then within 7 days of it being made available to the public, the statutes require that we hold a public hearing, which will be at our first meeting in April, with adoption of the full budget at our final meeting at the second meeting in April. Is the remainder of the schedule.
So for some of the things that we talked about yesterday and today, our goal is to get back to you as soon as we can. I think there was some good discussions yesterday as well as today, on some of the things that we really would like to see some adjustments or changes made to it. And we just have to get back, everyone roll back to you and Brad.
If you can get something to Brad and I, the next 48 hours here, we can start to make the changes. And I think, other than what I just mentioned with the cap and the pond, I think what I heard last night and what I heard again tonight is that find a way to get a couple more police officers in the budget. And that's fine. Keep in mind, when we were developing the budget, it was about the same time as the study was being finalized, and so it was a little bit of shooting in the dark for us, but I think if the message is to find a way to put another couple officers in, we'll do it. So,
And some of the bigger ticket items we talked about, making sure we get those to you right away pretty quickly.
yeah.
Hey, Dave, one of the other things too, besides the request for the police officers is the Public Works asked for a lot of personnel too, and if I remember, I think we only reallocate for one.
Correct.
I think he asked for 6, and then it's changed part-times to full-times. Yeah, I'd like if you and Kevin and Brad can sit down and look at that again too.
Okay, give me some specifics here. What do you want?
It's simple. They asked for 6 employees.
Yeah,
I mean, to see how important it is. I mean, which.
And I understand the difference between where we're at with police is that we have a study that's been completed, at least seen a review of it. We can go ahead and add it in there, but I don't think we've even seen kind of the review of Public Works yet.
We kind of did a review. I thought it was like 50. What did it just?
No, that's just the beginning. That's just an industry standard.
Yeah.
And we have what, 30?
39.
39 of what, the 56 or something? You said 57. 56.
I understand. I guess I'll repeat what I said last night. I think we need, I think, look comprehensive at all these things. If you're asking us to, I think, add more in Public Works, we'll look at it. I think it's premature, to be honest, until I think we get a study. I think there probably will be a need for it, but I think it's premature.
Anything else with the budget?
I want to commend just the fact that this was a huge document. It was put together very well. I want to say thank you to all the people. I know I was involved in a lot of the budget meetings, but the fact that how well this was put together by all staff. I mean, the finance group, great job of all the hours put in, but I just think that when the staffs came to the meetings, they were well prepared. They came into the meetings, they were very articulate in what they were asking for. I thought that they really did a nice job coming in and really, basically asking for very clear information to the staff when they sat down. So I want to commend everyone in the process on that.
I agree, and I think it was not only this, but getting kind of that preliminary discussion that we had back in December. That was really the first time we did something like that, and I think that helped a lot. But it also meant a lot of extra work for finance, and then certainly there's some things we can always improve on with the budget process.
I just think that we got a lot of big things going on, and I think the more we can talk about them in public, the more we can articulate what we really have to do here. But strategically, I think Jake had some nice points in his letter that basically says we got a lot of things in the village we have to do over the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay, so if you could get back to Brad and Dave on that in the next 48 hours, that'd be great. Continue on here. Number 3, discuss Lenny's car and wash annexation. Paula, is that you? Or?
You have in your packets a copy of the draft annexation agreement. This is for the annexation of the 4.87 acre parcel located at 19420 South Harlem Avenue. The property and the development obviously already exists. Currently, there is a fueling facility for vehicles, cars, automobiles, and trucks, a C-store, a convenience store, a car wash, and a drive-up food service, Dunkin' Donuts and Baker's Pizza on the property, as well as dispensing and filling of propane tanks. Mr. McHenry approached the village in a desire to expand his existing business similarly to some of his other establishments, such as the Car and Wash that's over on 191st Street, 8810. And that would include the selling of packaged liquor as well as a video gaming license. The property that we're talking about, the subject property, was constructed in 2015. The car wash was added in 2017. Currently, they get their water and sewer from the Village of Frankfort. We currently do not have a boundary agreement with Frankfort, so they have approached the village about annexation. The draft annexation includes kind of the following. These are the highlights of the agreement that you saw. We would be annexing them as a B3, that's general office or general business, local general business uses, and it would take a special use for the fueling facility and the car wash. The annexation agreement also requires bringing all the buildings into compliance with village code within 6 months, with the exception of the sprinkler system on the C-store within a year and the sprinkler system in the car wash in 5 years. A fire alarm system and the landscaping would be brought into compliance with the approved landscape plan and the fire alarm ordinance within 3 months of the execution of the annexation agreement. We did do an inspection of the property similar to any kind of change of owner, change of use inspection, and I also included that letter in your packets. Nothing major, but all those would come into compliance upon annexation. Another issue we discussed is making sure that we post no idling of trucks, especially along that west access drive, and Mr. McHenry has agreed to do that. With the annexation, he'd be allowed to continue the current operation, the 24-hour operation of his convenience store and motor fueling center. His car wash right now is operating from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Dunkin' Donuts is operating from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. Those would be allowed to continue. Signage as well. Our ordinance already states any non-conforming signs to our code upon annexation, they are allowed to continue to exist. So we've documented all existing signage, and that would be part of your annexation agreement upon execution of the agreement. Mr. McHenry is also asking that we would have to create, and that's another agenda item this evening, a new liquor license that would allow for the sale of packaged liquor at a fueling facility, as well as a video gaming. The hours would be regulated through that license. The connection to our Tinley Park water would be required within 1 year, and there's certain connection fees that would be required at that time when he executes or when he connects to the village water. We also have some recapture that in the amount of, for example, of $112,000, a little over $112,000 that he would have to pay upon execution of the annexation agreement. There is a recapture that's still under discussion for 194th water main. Those would all be paid at the time of connection to our water system, which is within 1 year. The term of the agreement is 20 years. We're anticipating, based on the projections and property taxes, sales taxes, video gaming, and licensing revenue of over $400,000 annually. With your direction, if we proceed with the annexation process, we will take this through the Plan Commission for the rezoning and the special uses. We'll have a public hearing on April 5th. And then it would come up to the village board for their consideration for first read on April 17th and final adoption on May 1st. So we'll bring the Plan Commission recommendations simultaneous up to the annexation hearing at the village board, culminating on May 1st. And I'm sorry I didn't push forward. If any of you are unfamiliar where it's located, that's where it's located. Any questions?
Any questions?
What are you looking for from us tonight? I mean, this is on the committee of the whole.
General consensus on the terms of the agreement, so that I have direction to move forward with the rezoning and Plan Commission.
Paul, do you want to tell them
what will happen next? The whole- do we go
Yes,
through
that was the schedule I was mentioning, so
Oh, okay.
go to the Plan Commission. The public hearing will be on April 5th, and then you'll have your annexation hearing. Patrick, do you like to do that at the final meeting at the village board or at the first read? For the annexation hearing. I wasn't sure which one you wanted. We're going to be before the board on April 5th, 17th, and May 1st.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
We'll take a look.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just generally have a comment, my own personal thought on this. I've got no problems with the business. That 80th Avenue wash and go, it's great. The best $3 car wash around. My problem is with the liquor and the gambling and the trucks and the cars. To me, they don't go together. I know Will County looked at it, they weighed it, and their balance wasn't, the cost benefits didn't weigh towards approving, and that's how I feel on this.
I would just, to play devil's advocate to your comment, Trustee Panito, I would just say that Will County is much larger for their cost benefits than just Tinley Park's cost benefit. We just went through 48 hours of budget review, and we're looking for revenue. We want to be able to perform to the levels that our residents expect from us. I think that we need to look at all possibilities when it comes to revenue.
From my view on this, I just look at it as it's been in existence, I think, over 2 years. Is that correct?
Yes,
So it's been in existence over 2 years. The fact that we can annex it in, I think it's an opportunity for us. And I think it's if you go into the establishment, it's well-run. You go into the establishment, the signage looks decent. I just think there's a lot of good things from the standpoint of what it can do for the village.
And I guess probably now would be a decent time to discuss, and I'm sure it'll be coming up later, but also that there was a letter that when the construction of the facility happened 2 years ago from former Mayor Dave Seaman to Will County Board. I think Paula has it in her hand. It was on behalf of the village board, and basically was directing Will County to, if they were going to continue forward with the project, that they try to adhere to the best of their abilities to the codes and ordinances of the village of Tinley Park. I don't believe that was the scenario ultimately at the end, but in this agreement that we're working towards now, the owner of the facilities has suggested that through the agreement that they will bring their building up to village code. So that's just to get out in front of that one, because I know that that's probably later. So.
My only comment is on the packaged liquor. They would be tied into if we decide to stop it at 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock or whatever it might be. They stop selling.
I think you'll be discussing.
I think the liquor license is actually next, and at item 4, Rob's got there was a memo that went out on that, I believe.
But they're part and parcel, right? The annexation agreement calls for that.
The annexation agreement, but as a license has to be created.
Right.
I think Rob handled that.
Yes.
The petitioner who wants to come in will not come in without
Right.
that piece of it.
Any other questions? Looking for direction then?
Direction to move
Proceed.
forward with the entitlement for zoning and special use.
Yeah, so, and again, so this is all coming back to you. We're gonna go down and do all the proper public hearings at the planning board. All those recommendations will come out. There's a planning piece, the annexation piece. Probably at the same time, I guess when we get to this liquor ordinance, we'll bring, if this is to go forward and everything like that, you'll get all of it at, same agendas. There'll be the annexation agreements, the zoning piece, the liquor pieces, all those pieces will come at once. So you're not making a final decision tonight. I don't think a formal vote is required. And I think general direction to move this into the planning stage would be enough.
You know my vote. I'm against unbalanced. Just me.
I'll make a recommendation just to move it to the next stage. I mean, you're looking as far as recommendations?
Hold on. Brian, you want to go? Let's keep it.
Yeah, for the record, I filed with the clerk's office. I'm abstaining from this, so you guys give direction here.
I go along with the recommendation. Go forward.
I do.
Okay,
Go along with
so that's
the
enough
recommendation.
direction
I do have one question, though.
there? Sure, go ahead.
Is it going to be similar to that Iron Skillet where they have a place they can park and stay in Crete? There's a giant truck stop by the Amazon.
They
Is there
have
any
very
mention of
limited
that?
space, and speaking to Mr. McHenry, his experience is it's really not the truckers that are going there for, I don't want to speak for him, but that's pretty much what I've learned in looking at his site on 191st. It's really not the truckers that are coming here for the gambling. It's the residents that are, and I couldn't tell you the residents, but you know, when I've gone in there on the 191st, there's not a pile of trucks parked in the parking area. And I think that's one of the things I was concerned about, and I'd heard through this letter, it was brought up as well, but I wanted to make sure there was no idling of trucks, so he's agreed to post no idling of trucks along that western access drive, which is most immediately adjacent to the residents.
Thanks, Paul.
So you've got direction.
Okay?
Number 4, move on to discuss creating a new liquor license.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe everybody received a memo regarding this liquor license. There is a significant error in there that I'd like to address at this point. When we were discussing the license, I referenced the facilities in Mokina on 191st Street when it came to their gaming and liquor. And in this facility, or the location we're talking about, it's noted in the memo that they already have that, and that's not the circumstances. I just want to fully address that. That was an error on the mayor's office, and that is not the case. That is what they're requesting. They do have it in other locations, Mokina and Springfield, Kankakee maybe, if I remember correctly. So there are other locations that they do have the same request already working, but just not this location. So my error on that, and are there any questions referencing? I know this is fairly controversial, so I'm open to any type of questions.
Number 5, discuss liquor licensing. Mr. Mayor.
Rob, is there anything you want to add? I mean, again,
Hello, everybody. My name is Rob Zimmer. I'm Mayor Vandenberg's assistant. Trustee Brady, to your question earlier about their liquor license sales hours, those would still be restricted to follow village code, which would prevent liquor sales from 6 a.m. from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Monday through Friday, and then 2 a.m. to noon on Sundays. So this petition for a new liquor license would not expand their liquor hours beyond that of every other liquor license holder. And again, my apologies on the mix-up with the location of what they are currently having and what they want. That was my fault. My apologies on that. Any other questions on the liquor license?
The business will still be open 24 hours though, right?
Correct.
It is 24-hour.
And as the code is written, according to the State of Illinois Video Gaming Act, they do allow for truck stops, which this would fall under that definition, to have 24-hour gaming. So they would not have 24-hour liquor sales, but they would have 24-hour gaming under this proposal.
Rob, if you could just expound upon that a little bit. There's some very strict guidelines for truck stops, if I remember correctly. Can you
Absolutely.
just give a general discussion on that, if you could, please?
So as far as the State of Illinois Video Gaming Act defines a truck stop as having at least 3 acres. They also have to sell at least 10,000 gallons of diesel fuel a month, and they also have to have dedicated parking for semi-trucks. Under the current proposal, no other location in Tinley fits those definitions. So this would be the only location that falls under the definition of a truck stop. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Nothing else on that, then number 6, discuss board agenda, citizen comment. Not sure who's got that on. Pat?
It was brought to our attention a while ago, and just talking with some of the trustees to try to make public comment more efficient and a little more transparent. One of the suggestions was to look at some of the surrounding communities on how they conducted their public comment period. What we saw, was about 4 of them in the area that did it in the beginning. We were looking at that to give the citizens the opportunity to comment on items that were on the agenda prior to the elected officials making a vote. So that's sort of what precipitated us to look into those things, to have actually the public to have a little bit more influence on, addressing their concerns to the elected officials if there is a controversial item on the agenda. So that's what we looked into, and we just put it forward to, consideration for us to possibly do it that way.
Don't we do that now? I read the policy. It looks like whenever it's set on the agenda, that's when the public comment could be. There is no prescription that says it has to be at the end of the meeting.
Correct. I mean, it just says it must be listed on the agenda. We could put it in the beginning, middle, or the end, so.
And I know that for big items, like where it's a final approval of a money item or something like that, the unwritten policy that the mayor's been following is that, he'll open it up for people to comment prior to that vote. And it's always kind of been the way that we've done it as long as I can remember, so that won't change, I'm assuming, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it's already been changed, the public comment to 4 minutes back in 16. Why would we, what's wrong with public comment at the end? If you look at the comparables that you used, most of all the big towns do it the same way.
Yeah, again, this is really a board decision. I will just tell you, the experience in my last couple towns is that they have comment at the beginning. It does allow residents the opportunity to comment on an agenda item. The board, I've seen in situations in my last position where elected officials sometimes change their minds based on what they heard. So that would be the reason for doing it. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, but the only thing I would suggest is the way we do it now is after voting it, agenda items, they speak afterwards, and then they speak at the end of the meeting. We should keep the end of the meeting because, well, I'll get into that in a second, but the agenda items, you should be able to speak beforehand, because I agree with you. There's been comments that I've heard after votes, and then, it kind of made you, think twice about it. But as far as at the end of the meeting, there's times, I don't know how many people sitting on a board have been to a board meeting before being elected that have spoke. It's sitting on that side of it's a lot different. I've been to meetings for over 2 years, and there's been times I come to a meeting and I didn't plan on saying a thing until I heard something that was discussed by the board. So that was said by the board, if you're sitting in the public. So now what you're doing basically, in essence, is you would force someone to come to a second meeting 2 weeks later instead of speaking right there and then. I wouldn't see, to put it at the beginning, any luxury. I mean, because you have the chance to speak before an agenda item. I would leave it at the end. Because you're taking away that First Amendment right for someone to speak after they hear, or the officials speak right before the public comment. There may be something that they heard that they want to change, or something that they want to say.
But wouldn't it be beneficial for the public to speak before you make a vote, so you can hear what their opinion is ahead of time?
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Before the agenda item.
Before the agenda.
You speak.
Yeah.
And we keep the other public comment at the end like we already have. So what we have now, Bill, is an agenda item comes up, you vote, and then the public gets to speak, and at the end of the meeting, they get to speak again. Only thing we need to switch is speaking before the voting.
I view a few of it. Number one, in a lot of our votes, they come back for 2 votes in a lot of our cases. So having it at the beginning, and if you look at the towns that do it, almost all the towns, even the ones that show middle, are doing it at the beginning of the meeting, right before the consent agenda, right after the minutes. So the view of it is that if we do it at the beginning, they have the chance to basically have any discussion they want before we vote. They have the right, because most of these things, we're coming back for a second vote. So at the next meeting, they'd have the same opportunity to do that. So I just look at it differently. I view it as, it's the beginning of a meeting, we can hear what they have to say. I think it's critical before we vote to hear it. And I think it puts it in perspective for the meeting, what we're voting on. And if they do, if they have a strong view on it, they still have the right to come back at the second reading to be able to do the same situation before we vote the second time. So I just think, here's how I view it. There's 3 good things that I thought we were trying to achieve in the meeting. First, one of the ideas was to have Pat explain a lot of the questions that were being raised at other meetings. He would come at the beginning of the meeting, talk about what those questions were, put them out on the website. You know, we talked at the clerk's office, we have the opportunity to do that. The second thing that I think we're doing at the meetings that I think we brought into play over the last 3 weeks is highlights of all the areas and things that are going on within the areas. I think these are great things for the board meetings to really have the people of the village understand what we're trying to achieve. And I think it's a critical element. You know, based on the last 2 days of the budget, there's a lot on our agenda going forward. And I firmly believe that some of these things that we're putting into the meetings only benefit the meetings going forward. And I think that the highlight section, it's great that they're able to understand what's going on. And some of those questions that are being raised can be kind of tied into how we're doing our highlights. So that's how I see it, you know, from a different view.
I just note that, you know, the policy itself allows us to do it either way.
Right.
I think it's just a matter of personal preference, and thinking about how today's meeting went, there may be people who had something that they wanted to talk about on one of these items that aren't going to get to talk about it until after we've discussed it. So we're going to miss those thoughts and concerns that citizens have. Not everything is helpful, but some of it is, and some of it affects our votes and how
That's
we
the point I'm
discuss
making.
it. So
are you looking to take away one of the public comment sections?
Yeah.
Why would we want to do that? Why, the way we're doing it now is you speak at the end, after everything's all done.
And that's the way we've done it for a while.
And you also, the way we do it now is you vote on something, and then the public gets to speak. Why wouldn't we just move that section right before the agenda item, before we vote, like you were discussing, and have their public comment at the end of the meeting? Why would we take that away? Because we've used up here before, I've heard several times about what other towns are doing or this or that. Well, Orland Park and New Lenox and Frankfurt, the ones that are surrounding us, they all do it at the end. And they're similar in size. What advantage, you know, basically is where I'm getting to, what advantage will we have to take away, you know, free speech from someone speaking at the end of the meeting? You know, let's let them talk
I don't
before
think
the
we're taking
agenda.
away, see, I have a different.
Can I just
Yeah.
interject really quick? Because I'm hearing both sides of this, and my intention is to just kind of sit here and listen, but this isn't a suppression of speech, first of all. So it's the second time I've heard something about taking away freedom of speech, and that's certainly not the case whatsoever. That's not any of our intentions. Robert's rules. So conducting village business, it's a formality, it's decorum. The idea is that you want to do it in an order so that everyone has an opportunity to say it in a professional and conduct business in a professional manner. The village, as Mike Pinito pointed out, has an unwritten rule that they allow for comments to be made for large final ordinances or expenditures of funds. It's something that's been continued on from my predecessor and the predecessor before him. So, and that's something that, at this point, I'm not taking that away. I believe in it. I'm fine with that. The idea is to create an atmosphere and environment that you're creating an efficient way of conducting business. So every time you start a motion, you end it, you move it through the committee, you have a discussion. Excuse me. Thank you. Every time you have that discussion, you're keeping it in a fluid motion. That's the whole. I mean, the reason that you have these particular sets of guidelines from Robert's rules is for that reason alone. It's not to curb someone's opinion. It's not to curb somebody's opinion or suppress their comments. It's only to make it fair for everyone else on the board to, good night, Mike. It's only fair for everybody else on the board to have an equal and opportunity time to conduct village business. So,
Pat, does this need to come to the board then for a
no,
vote?
there's no ordinances being drafted on this. This is something that it's a personal decision that needs to be discussed. And instead of just throwing it out there, the reason we put it before the committee was so that we could have a discussion about it, which is what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, when you guys, back in 16, you guys already, I won't use the words, but you guys already decreased the amount of time that residents were allowed to speak.
Time out. We set guidelines based upon a recommendation at the time from.
I'll say, that was right when I said, we had to do it. The Attorney General said, you need to make rules.
You didn't have to make it 4 minutes.
Didn't have to make it 4 minutes. I agree.
Exactly. So
Agreed. Could've made it any day, yeah.
let's get that out there. You guys chose the 4 minutes the
We
previous.
took an average.
We had to come up with
amongst
some kind of rule.
other towns.
And
Correct.
I remember
Correct.
specifically up there and asking you guys, to make it 6 or 7. You didn't have to go down to 4. And then when we're trying to interact with them, like the other night, a resident wanted to speak, and Mike was trying to respectfully answer his question, and then he's cutting into his time. That's why I never agreed with the 4 minutes in the first place. So.
But Jake, I mean, in that case, Mike, I get it. And in that case, they can ask for more time, and I think we'd be more than happy to give that.
I know, but it's that clock, it's the thing, it
I
goes
get it.
off. So,
Yep.
because as soon as it hit the 4 minutes, he turned around and walked away.
Yep,
And I
I
get it.
get that.
You were being respectful about it. It's just that whole 4 minute thing, I never was a fan of. You changed it from 4 minutes, and now to eliminate another time at the end of the meeting for people to speak, it's not transparent. I mean,
We're moving, we're not eliminating, we're moving.
you are eliminating.
No, we're moving it to the front end of the meeting.
There's 2 times that you get a chance to speak.
And there's 2 times currently.
So if
correct?
if you move it to the beginning of the meeting, what am I speaking on? I haven't heard a thing.
Well,
I haven't
but
heard
the
a.
purpose of the comments that people are making are about village business, which is the agenda that you've either printed or grabbed before you walked in the back of the room. So you're making a comment based upon the agenda item. Or a comment about a question that you might have. So nothing should
You
really
make it-
change in the way that you make your comment.
You make it before the agenda item already, Jake. So there's no reason, so you're going to speak about the same thing twice? You don't need to speak at the beginning when you're going to speak before an agenda item. It's very inefficient. You're speaking twice about the same thing. Why, if I have an opportunity to speak about an item, why would I want to speak at the beginning of the meeting when that item comes up that I'm interested in, I'm going to speak about? That's the whole purpose of having it at the end. I mean.
Well, I think, and I hear what you're saying there, but as Trustee Pedro before he left said, in this particular circumstance, if you look at tonight's special committee of the whole meeting, there's people here that had comments about a particular item. They sat through an hour and a half of budget discussions. They could have came and had said their grievances, made their comments, and they could have either been on the way with the rest of their evening or sat down and listened to the rest of our budget meeting. The point of it is it's an efficiency. It's nothing more than that.
Most of the time, we have 5 to 10 people here. So for that reason, I would, if we were back at the convention center and we had 800, 1,000 people, and we'd have 50 people lined up, I completely agree. But, I mean, to be honest with you, we are taking away speech from people. I've sat out there in that audience, and individuals from the board used to text people on what to say at the end of the meetings. I mean, to take away public comment is horrible. How that's what we're doing, because you get a chance to, and maybe even after you vote, maybe you still have something to say. We're speaking twice. We're speaking at the beginning, and then we speak before the agenda. It's repetitive. I don't see a purpose in why we would take that away at the end of the meeting. We have on average 5 people here a meeting.
David,
It would serve no
Pat,
purpose.
you're looking for direction on this then? All those in favor of the proposed changes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Hold on a minute.
Wait.
Procedures.
What are the proposed changes?
Well, the recommendation from the staff was go ahead and move the, it's discretionary, is not? I guess we're not drafting an ordinance on this. I guess that's another question I had.
Yeah, the ordinance is that it has to be on the agenda, not where on the agenda, so.
Yeah. I'm not sure there's a need for vote, but I think we just wanted to see what the majority of the board was in favor of doing this, so.
I think everybody's
That sounds like.
opinions have been duly noted.
Sounds like it is.
Noted.
We'll see how
That's
it
about
goes.
All right, I have to say something then, if that's the last thing, before we go to public comment.
Go ahead, Mike.
Everyone else done?
Well, I want to say I've been to Orland Park board meetings, not just ours, and they do, the mayor's comment is after all of ours also. There's another change noted. I don't know if you've been to one of theirs, but you referred to Orland.
Yeah, no, it's because they use them as a reference.
Yeah.
They speak it, the public
Well,
comment.
you asked if we went to other board meetings, and I have gone to theirs.
Yeah, this is about public comment in Tinley, not Orland. So if we use it as a reference that they speak, that the public comments at the end.
Yeah, but I'm talking about us and the mayor.
Yeah, the mayor speaks at the end here as well. One thing I wanted to just touch base is I wanted to discuss a post on the village website about prevailing wage ordinance. I just want to be clear that that post is not speaking for myself. I fully support it. I don't agree with it. I'm not going to be contacting any commissioners. To me, with the background and household that I've grown up with, being a union family, that kind of right-wing language used as relentlessly workplace freedom or workers' rights, but behind closed doors as a different face is revealed by these same people and aimed at demobilize organized labor who are residents of our community. I do not believe it hurts our working men and women, but with that ordinance. Unions have a substantial impact on the compensation and work lives of both union and non-union workers who are residents. Prevailing wage is intended to protect local construction standards and apprenticeship programs by leveling the playing field for all contractors. It uses a local workforce keeping disposable income in our community, making business thrive. As a result, the Department of Labor registered training programs create a workforce resulting in a 21 to 33% more productive in communities that have prevailing wage. Standards resulting in total project cost saving and being completed on time and on budget. The absence of prevailing wage sets a wage race to the bottom for our residents, resulting in negative economic impacts to our community. Thanks to our union residents for being the heartbeat of working America, supporting weekends off, collective bargaining agreement, paid vacations, overtime, Social Security, pension, unemployment insurance, 8-hour work days, and safety laws. Thanks.
Receive comments from the public. Anyone wish to address the board?
Hold on a minute. Mr. Chairman, do you want to give a brief overview of what we're not suppressing public comment, by the way. This is just in response to what was just said. The message was clearly stated that it was a message from myself, the mayor, in response to an ordinance that Cook County's moving through their committees. So if you would, just please address the public on exactly what's going on.
Well, it's actually been a couple of ordinances. Cook County recently put in an ordinance that would essentially require businesses that receive tax incentives in Cook County to pay an amount that's the living wage, which is something we had discussed a year or so ago, and the village, like many other communities, had opted out, and the one that Trustee Glatz was referring to is requiring all incentive holders to pay a prevailing wage on projects. And I think the issue, and I've talking with a number of managers and mayors throughout the area, is that I think everybody, if the rules were the same in Cook County and Will County and Indiana, I don't think anybody would be complaining. But the problem is they're not. And we're already starting from a place where I think, as everybody here is aware, the property taxes are much higher. We have higher sales tax. And being a border community on Will County and close to Indiana, it's very difficult for us to compete. And measures like this really hurt our competitiveness, and not in an insignificant way. There's the Chicago Southland Chamber put out something today. There's a number of projects in the area that really have been put on hold while they kind of look at the outcome of what's going to happen with this debate. So that's the reason for it.
Dave, how many mayors and managers have actively spoken out against this?
Well, I don't know the exact number. I know at one of the hearings there was representatives from mayors and managers and businesses from the south area. There was over 60.
Thank you.
And this is all private development, not, I mean, the village pays prevailing.
Yeah, the village pays it, right. This is private development, again, that we're trying to entice here because of the fact that the business taxes are high enough as it is, and make it very uncompetitive. And Pat Hoban went to the last hearing and I think showed a map of Will County Tinley Park and all the development that's happening there, and then a map of Cook County Tinley Park, and I think it's that picture says a lot.
Yeah. So the village uses tools and incentives to go out and secure development in Cook County, and here we are potentially losing development in Cook County because of forced mandates that put an unfair playing field for our development community. So that is how it hits the homes of the men and women who work in an organized labor union. If the developments aren't here, they're not going to be working on developments.
Well, the
That's
jobs
reason I spoke
won't
out ag-
come
That's
here.
the reason
Yeah,
I
that's-
spoke out against it.
yeah.
Is there something you had to add, Council?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify before you get, trustee Yonker, the disclosure that you made, that's the one that you referenced, the most recent one that's up on the clerk's website. That's correct. And then the nature of that is you provide some property maintenance work for the subject property, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, number 7, receive comments from the public. Anyone wish to address the board in regards to the committee of the whole agenda? Please step forward.
Good evening. My name is David Arnold. I have some correspondences from previous trustees and mayors about the proposed development. These are from around the time that the development was beginning. So the first one's dated February 4th, 2015, from Edward Zabrocki and Gregory Hannon. The village seeks to address the aesthetics and performance of the proposed site plan with the goal of ensuring that the development does not negatively impact the enjoyment and values of single-family residential neighborhoods adjacent to the proposed project. We know that we share this concern as elected officials and want to do what we can to protect our constituents from the negative impacts of commercial development. The village respectfully asks that the following changes to the site plan be requested of the developer to address our mutually beneficial interests. There are about 14 of these. I'm just going to cite a few of them. Number 1 was remove the semi-truck fueling facility. It also listed no alcohol sales and then limiting hours of operation. The next one is from March 2nd, 2015, again from Edward Zabrocki. The village's next step in support of the residents adjacent to this truck stop is to limit the impact to their neighborhood by limiting opportunities for gaming on the site. Note that this semi-fueling facility is less than 200 feet from the residential property line. My next one is from October 29th, 2015, and is from David Seaman. Over the last few years, village planners and several of our elected officials have met with Mr. McHenry and his professional team to discuss the ways in which the project could be refined to closely meet the Village of Tinley Park commercial development standards within our zoning ordinance. The Lenny's team has not wanted to annex to the village if full compliance with village codes is required. As mayor, I am compelled to respond to the concerns of Village of Tinley Park residents who live adjacent to the property and feel their property values and neighborhood character are negatively impacted by this project as it currently exists and also by what is currently proposed. The village and county share these concerns as local government officials, and we want to do what we can to protect our constituents from the negative impacts of commercial development. The uses proposed, the addition of drive-through restaurants to the existing convenience store, and the addition of a standalone car wash requiring a zoning map amendment and special use consideration. Within the Village of Tinley Park, a car wash and drive-through restaurant, as well as gas station and convenience store, would be allowed in the same lot only within the village's B3 district as special use. The B3 zoning district is the village's most intense commercial zoning district, allowing automobile-dependent uses and uses that are generally less associated with a residential neighborhood unless well-screened. This last one is from Thomas Weigel, a Will County board member. Honorable Mayor, and this is dated March 11th of this year. Honorable Mayor and village trustees, it has come to my attention that Lenny's Car, Gas, and Wash has petitioned the village for annexation. Several residents of Tinley Park and Will County fought the establishment of this business at its present location over a period of years. This is due to the adverse effects of truck traffic on residential streets, as well as the noise and fumes from trucks. It was my belief that there was not a need for additional facilities of this type in the area. The income generated from this facility only takes away from other facilities in the area. I have seen pictures of trucks backed up on residential streets going into this facility, as well as corners being cut by big rigs. The Will County Board did not want to grant a liquor license or gaming license for this facility due to the large number of existing liquor licenses in the area already. Additional gaming facilities will only take away revenue from already existing facilities. I urge you to not annex the facility for the sole purposes of providing liquor sales and gaming. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right. Hi, my name is Ryan Arnold. I am here to read off a couple letters from people who couldn't make it here tonight. This one is from Marie Roman. I'm opposed to Lenny's Gas and Go selling liquor and having on-site gambling. There are enough of these establishments everywhere, and it promotes addictions that can destroy individuals and the lives of their families as well. What Lenny is teaching our youth through these habits that compromise our through these habits that compromise our health, safety, and sanity. Many who buy liquor from a gas station start to drink while they are driving, and accidents can occur. Further, many have lost their homes, lives, and families to gambling addictions. Tinley Park should not allow Lenny to be annexed to itself simply because he wants gambling and alcohol added to his list of moneymakers. It is enough that Lenny already gained his car wash, Dunkin' Donuts, and truck filling stations, adding to the noise, pollution, and challenge to our and Frankfort's water supply, which is rationed already in the summer. Our community has been compromised enough as if we were located on the expressway and not in a residential area. Some respect should be shown to the residents who pay taxes here to keep this town going. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Marie and David Roman. I also have a letter from one Andrew Tess. The issue of Lenny's Gas and Wash was a very emotional and a trying issue for the residents of Tinley Trails and Brookside Glen since 2012. Basically, the property was zoned originally for a gas station with convenience store. What was built was a truck stop, which was identified as a truck stop by Lenny's when he requested a truck stop gaming license in 2013 to 2014. This application was later withdrawn as he attempted to gain approval for his project by applying for what the then zoning allowed. He now asks for annexation so as to enable his original truck stop / liquor / gaming plans can be accomplished. Between 2012 and 2016, numerous meetings by the Will County Board, the County Zoning Commission, Planning Commission, the Frankfort Township Board, the Frankfort Planning and Zoning Commission, Frankfort Township Road District Commission, and the Highway Department overwhelmingly voted against the initial project. However, it was built anyway under the then approved zoning of gas station with convenience store. It was built with provisions for a beer cooler with knowledge that Will County was not going to look favorably on a liquor license in a district that had a disproportionate number of liquor licenses for the entire county. I believe it was 9 of the 15 were in the district already. It took 2 lawsuits before one judge agreed reluctantly that the zoning of the property allowed for a gas station with a convenience store and the 2 special use permits, car wash and food drive-through. In 2012 and 2013, the then Tinley Park administration issued their objections to the initial project. However, without jurisdictional control, they indicated that there was nothing they could do. We, the community, previously pleaded, you should not build a truck stop / car wash / drive-through liquor store gambling establishment through the front door of a residential community. We ask that you reject the annexation. Andrew Tess. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Arnold. First, I respectfully ask the question, does the Village of Tinley Park have a legal obligation to approve the annexation of the property? Is this something you have to do? Is the Village of Tinley Park looking to approve the annexation of the property for the sole purpose of money? Please consider the following major impacts that this process of annexation following with the approval of 24-hour available gambling and the sale of packaged liquor will have on the community near their location. Safety, property values, additional traffic added by 2 additional businesses, morals, ethics, and comfort of our properties. These 2 parcels had denials of all special use permit applications from the Will County Board in 2013 and 2015. The drive-up and car wash were both court approved. It is my opinion it is inappropriate for the village to annex this property as an R1 and immediately rezone it as a B3. This is not an appropriate location for a business to conduct the sale of packaged liquor and to provide 24-hour gambling less than 200 feet from single-family residences, especially given the fact that if this property was vacant when annexed, the current development would not have passed, given your ordinances and special use permits. Mr. Seaman pointed this out in his correspondence. On October 29th, Mayor Seaman wrote a letter to the Will County Planning Board pointing out that B3 zoning is the village's most intense commercial zoning district. Once again, this is abutting single-family residences. According to the zoning map on the village website, I did not find any parcels in this small size like the subject property abutting single-family homes in an R2 property up next to any B3s. Examples of B3 include Target, Sam's Club, Aldi. Not one single gas station abuts single-family residents in Tinley Park. Not one Tinley Park gas station can accommodate semi-trucks. The ordinances on the village website do not even address semi-truck fueling. I even called Speedway on 183rd and Harlem. The manager told me they do not have a pump station for semi-trucks. Here's some interesting information. Speedway on 80th Avenue recently annexed property. At the September 3rd, 2015 meeting, Village Plan Commission meeting, the discussion of the fact that Speedway wanted to add pumps in order to qualify for an Illinois gaming license. You guys prohibited it. The Speedway needed to sign an agreement stating they will not file any video gaming licenses in the future. That was the only way that you allowed this annexation. Bill Carlson, the Frankfort Highway Commissioner, wrote his concerns to the Will County Board regarding the traffic during the special use permit application for the car wash and drive-up. Now you're looking to add 2 additional businesses to add traffic congestion. Do you realize how many rules are being rewritten for this subject property? B3 in a neighborhood of single-family residences. Diesel truck fueling and automobile fueling on property abutting single-family residences. Semi-truck refueling less than 200 feet from semi-family residences. The annexation agreement, including a new ordinance to allow packaged liquor to be sold at gas stations. Currently, you don't sell liquor at automobile servicing stations. 24-hour video gambling. Not one video gambling establishment licensed in Tinley Park is allowed to operate video gaming 24 hours a day. Business Week, November 19, 2009, named South Suburban Tinley Park the best place in the U.S. to raise a family. Do you now want to be known as the best place to video gamble at 9 a.m. or at 3 a.m. in a neighborhood next to single-family residences? May I respectfully ask for 30 more seconds?
You got it, go ahead.
Do you now want to be known as the best place to video gamble at 3 a.m. in a neighborhood next to single-family residences where families sleep, where families with children assume that they are safely snuggled in bed? Well, in the meantime, the parents lie in bed worried for their safety. Just this morning in Homer Glad at 12 a.m., an armed robbery occurred at a gas station. And also yesterday in Dalton, a victim was shot at a gas station. So why are you inviting more trouble in the middle of the night to this neighborhood with adding this mini casino? In my opinion, video gambling does not belong in a gas station available 24 hours a day with easy access to the neighborhood and children. Children walk to this location. I constantly see kids riding their bike and walking past with their giant slushy drinks. Should they have such easy access to these video gambling machines? In my opinion, just one time of allowing an underage person to buy liquor and play at a video gaming machine is one time too many. How many times has it happened at Gas and Wash in Mokina? Wait, I rephrase that question. How many times has someone been caught? Illinois state gaming agents are not stationed at each gaming establishment like it is required for a riverboat casino to be open for business. What is Tinley Park's policy pertaining to the receipt of political contributions from an applicant? My personal philosophy of life is one of ethics and standing up for decency. Is the community that abuts the subject property being considered when looking at annexing this property? Please consider the safety, property values, added traffic, adding 2 additional businesses, the morals, ethics, and comfort of our properties. I'm requesting that this applicant not move on. Please do not recommend this annexation to move on to the Planning Commission meeting on March 15th. I thank you for your time and thank you for allowing me to go on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a hard act to follow. These are my neighbors. 20 years ago, my husband and I built a house in Tinley Trails. We've been there almost 20 years now. And Tinley Trails has 31 single-family homes. And we always knew that property on Harlem was commercial, and there would be something there. But this is my Lenny file. We've been fighting that particular business on that corner because of what it would do and how close it is to our family homes. And I'm still having a hard time understanding how all of those committees and all of those boards recommended that that was not an appropriate place for that type of business, and there it is. So I can't say any more than what my neighbors have said to me. We've done environmental studies, we've done traffic studies, we've done crime studies, and we presented them to the Will County boards and the Landing Commission and all of those boards, who really did find that it's not an appropriate place for that type of business. He's expanded his business since then. Now he wants the liquor license and a gaming. It's not fair to your constituents, we people, to have to put up with that kind of thing in our own backyards. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sandra Rennie, and I reside at 7231 West 194th Street in Tinley, which is adjacent to Lenny's, of course. Let me begin today by directing you to our timeline. We put together a timeline here. You've heard most of it from some of the former speakers that we have provided for you. And it states historically that since 2013, Leonard McHenry has been denied by the Frankfort Township Board for special use permits and twice by the Will County Board reps for his special use permits to obtain a liquor as well as gambling permit for his current gas and wash station. Since 2012, our local Tinley and Frankfort residents have adamantly opposed the very same permits he is asking you to approve via this annexation process in our village of Tinley. Our residents went door to door and talking to residents, and approximately 700 residents signed petition opposing these permits. Let me say that again, 700 approximate signatures opposing these permits from our villages. We also attended the Brookside Glen Homeowners Association and overwhelmingly received their report regarding opposition to these very same special use permits that he is requesting now. Our Frankfort Building and Transportation Department, along with Frankfort Township Board members, vetoed these special use permits on September of 2015 due to concerns of traffic and safety issues. The Frankfort Township Highway Commissioner, who has over 18 years of experience, is also on record regarding the traffic and safety concerns we've been talking about. Please note that traffic has already escalated into our residential streets with just the building of this gas station. And regarding our children's safety, there currently are 12 bus stops within a quarter mile from this station, just from the Summit Hill K-9 elementary school. K through 8, excuse me. Will we need more police protection for our children? Also, as you have previously heard, our past Tinley mayors, Mayor Zabrocki and Mayor Seaman, along with our current mayor, Mr. Vandenberg, then a trustee, previously and previous Tinley Village officials were very supportive of our residents in opposing this station and the special use permits, citing the traffic and crime issues which accompany gambling and liquor sales. I don't know if you remember that, Mr. Vandenberg, but you were at one of those meetings.
Yeah, in the back.
Okay.
I recall.
So, crime continues to be another major concern for our community. As a few years ago, when we first presented our facts to Will County, we acknowledged recent studies which detailed facts regarding crimes in gas stations and liquor stores and convenience stores. And a few of these basic facts relating to crime include: operation hours are the strongest factor in store robberies, particularly for stores open 24 hours a day. Late evening to early morning hours carry a risk of being targeted. Robbers commonly consider escape routes an important factor in selecting a target, and that's where the safety of the community comes in. For example, via our 2015 FOIA request to the Tinley Park Police Department for our Tinley Park gas convenience store and liquor store businesses, there were numerous arrests over the last 5 years, including 64 for disorderly conduct, 31 disorderly intoxications, 49 for petty thefts up to $300, and 5 armed robberies. And the list goes on. May I continue, please, Mr. Mayor? Since our residential community, and by the way, I did FOIA for a more current update on that this morning, which will be coming in 5 days. Since our residential community is directly adjacent to Leonard Station, these facts therefore represent a major safety concern to all residents in our neighborhood. We would then ask, since the station is open 24 hours a day, how will security be enforced? For example, attendees to the Odyssey Music Park currently leave liquor bottles in our parkway to and from concerts in the summertime. So imagine if they could also purchase more liquor. Will our Village of Tinley require extra police officers to assist with these projected crime issues? Lastly, as residents and taxpayers of this community, our property values will continue to decline. Please remember that our neighborhood is like an extended family. We have spent all of our lives working and planning for a home which would be free of congestion, which is found in the larger cities. And our homes may be the largest investments that most of us have ever made. So, as our elected officials, we ask that you do what is best for all the people you represent, just as the Will County and Frankfort board members have done in the past. Vote no for this future annexation to Tinley request from Leonard and Henry. Thank you for your time.
Hang on.
Take your time.
Well, that's a tough act to follow, let me tell you. So I think I'll go for the wave runner. Get it? I did review a lot of comments from the neighbors, our neighbors in the, anyway, after reviewing a lot of the comments this morning, I decided to share the family letter from the Asaris, who live down the block from us, regarding the annexation proposals. And some of my thoughts are in there too. I have to tell you, this has had my property value has been decimated. I quit. I can't even talk about it. And now they want liquor.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Arnold. I'd like to talk to you for a moment about this annexation agreement. The agreement as proposed, I strongly disagree with. The purpose of this annexation is to allow the existing establishment to add gambling and packaged liquor sales to this location. I know a lot of you view this as just a little gas station on the corner. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let me look at it another way. This is an establishment that already poisons our air through the diesel truck fuels. It poisons our ground through diesel runoff and through potentially leaking storage tanks. It contributes to the obesity of our children by offering junk food like donuts, candy bars, pizza, and other sugary soft drinks, as well as slushies that have almost no nutritional value. This is already there. The facility also poisons our lungs by the sale of cigarettes, a known carcinogen, and now you have before you a proposal to add 2 more activities, gambling and liquor, that are known to promote addiction and crime in a single-family residence area. This is the gateway to an entire subdivision in Tinley Park. You have heard today from residents and past public officials in Tinley Park objecting to this agreement. As a matter of fact, this very body forced the Speedway on 80th Avenue to agree to never to apply for a gambling license, specifically because they didn't want any more gambling there. You have also heard from members of the Will County Board objecting to these specific activities at this specific location. In fact, the Will County Board voted repeatedly over the past 5 years to reject these activities at this very location due to the health and safety reasons. To rule today to allow these activities would be the very definition of arbitrary and would raise the specter of pays to play in Tinley Park. This establishment, as proposed, would not be allowed anywhere else in Tinley Park. Can you yourself say that you would allow this type of establishment anywhere else in Tinley Park? Would you allow it in your own backyard? If you would not allow this location in your own neighborhood of single-family homes, how could you possibly support it at this location where other single-family homes are located? Please keep in mind that by arbitrarily allowing this business to bypass long-standing Tinley Park rules and carving out special rules for them to operate, you are inviting legal challenges not only from those that oppose this development, but also from other businesses that are sure to say, hey, me too, you allowed it for them, why not allow it for me? And believe me, legal challenges will come, as we have seen. By allowing this deal to go forward, you are allowing the camel's nose under your tent. Don't be surprised when the entire camel is in your bed when you wake up. Thank you.
I wasn't even going to talk on the subject, but listening to all the residents speak, I guess I'm really concerned if hearing it sounds like Frankfurt did a pretty good job of doing the right things for the residents. So I'm concerned now why we think we would want to do something different. It's very concerning for me that we would even consider moving forward with something like this in a neighborhood so close to houses. How do we compare to our other surrounding communities in the number of gambling licenses we have out right now?
I don't know the comparison.
We'll have to get back to you.
Yeah, we could pull it.
Good, Dave, will you get back to me on that?
Yeah.
Because, I'm always hearing you guys are comparing. It seems like we compare a lot when it serves a purpose, but we seem to ignore a lot of these comparisons also. So I just want to understand that a little bit, why we would want to give this out. Have we considered at all increasing the gambling revenue to the village? I mean, I'm hearing $50,000 some of these places are making, so is...
I think it's state statute. There's a set statute. There's a statute that
we can
is
charge?
identified per percentage.
And we can't charge fees, we can't charge, we can't add...
We charge a licensing fee for it.
And we can't increase...
$1,000 per license.
The law allows only maximum of 5 machines. Our licensing fee is the highest in the state. It's got $1,000 per machine.
And is that as high as it can go? I mean, it's not like they're turning, you got people, everybody that comes here seems to ask for this, so why wouldn't we increase that?
I would defer to council on that aspect of your comment.
There's no bright line rule that says it's 1,000, it's 2,000, but at some point, other considerations come into play, so,
They'd stop asking?
I don't know if that's the case, but I'm sure probably, there's probably some point where they would, but there's some point that they might sue and say, your license fee has absolutely no relation to what you're licensing. So there's a lot of legal issues that go into a licensing fee, but it's a fair question.
I just think,
I would note that very conversation has been had by this board. I mean, Mike and I have talked about that substantially, about raising fees. I know we all have. And exactly what the counselor just noted, that was part of our discussion. Right. So we have thought about it, certainly.
Because there's, I've stood up here many, many times talking about wanting more police, but I don't want to sell drugs on the corner to get police. I don't want to have another issue. Gambling isn't I don't want to encourage gambling, I don't even like the idea of selling liquor like this. I don't like the idea at all. I think that is going to cause more problems. I think we're going to be switching, we're going to need more police just to handle more issues. I don't think it's the right thing for us to be doing. And I wanted to ask a couple questions on the budget stuff. The amphitheater, do we get any money back from them for all the overtime on the police? So they cover that?
Yes, Brad
Yes.
did.
And then the 2% on the debt, there was a debt service for the convention center. Is that something that would be paid out of the TIF before we would use that for anything else?
We will pay what we can out of the TIF, and whatever we can't, we've got some other plans.
Is that something you could share? I mean,
I
I'm
think
just
to answer your
concerned
question,
that
yes,
we're going to
and
give up.
There is a certain portion of it that will be paid out of that, out of the remaining TIF.
I mean, how much is it that, I mean, because I'm assuming then that we have to pay the debt of the convention center once this is, the TIF is closed, right? And I don't know how much it is, if it's substantial or.
I don't know that I have everything.
Why don't we'll just add it to the
We could do an
list
extension
of
of the time if there's more questions, Diane.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really it. I just wanted to see on, you know, I
guys can-
hate
you
to all of a
guys can
sudden
get
we have
back to
all
her
an
on that.
extra
We will.
debt and
Yeah.
we did all this extra
Yep.
stuff out of the TIF funds, if we could pay that off first.
Yep.
You know, if it's monetary.
Well,
We'll get back.
Brad will drop that note over to her.
Okay.
We'll get back. Yeah.
What we're gonna pay for out of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, Mr. Stuckley, this gentleman had his hand up first, and then you can go.
I'm sorry.
follow.
Go ahead. Good evening. My name is Lyman Tiemann. I'm the attorney for Len McHenry, who is in the audience. And Len is the owner of the Lenny's Food and Fuel that we're talking about this evening. I don't want to get into counter arguments and those types of things. We'll save that for the public hearing when this comes up before the Planning Commission. But I do want to go on the record as saying that this project has been in a state of flux from 2013, I believe. We first started this through the county process. And many of the same neighbors that are here tonight have appeared at the township, have appeared at the county, have appeared at the committees of the county, and ultimately appeared at the court. The property was zoned for a gas station. We built a gas station. The county, in its wisdom, turned down a car wash and a drive-up food service window. After we had spent weeks and months and whatever in negotiation debate with neighbors, county, township, a number of different individuals that were involved in the planning process for this. Ultimately, the county turned down the drive-up food service window that we currently have operating and turned down the car wash. We filed a lawsuit in the Circuit Court of Will County. These neighbors, Bill Carlson, the Township Highway Commissioner that was referred to by one of the neighbors, Tom Weigel, County Board member who wrote a letter to your village board, they all appeared in front of a judge. A judge listened to their arguments. They listened to our arguments. The judge ruled that a drive-up food service window was appropriate at this site and that a car wash was appropriate at this site. Everything that's being done on site is perfectly legal within the bounds of the zoning and the court decree that was entered by the Circuit Court of Will County. We're here this evening because we would like to take advantage and utilize an opportunity to have alcohol sales, package alcohol sales from this development, and to have the right to have video gaming as provided by state law. At the time that we were in process in court through the county and we filed a lawsuit against the county board in its wisdom came up and decided, hey, we're going to opt out of the gaming ordinance. We're going to prohibit any liquor sales in the county unless the township board members say it's okay. Well, the township board members from Frankfort Township, in which this property is located, were the ones that were opposed to our development and created essentially special legislation so that we could not avail ourselves of packaged liquor sales, which I think they had 12 licenses available in the county, and 9 of them were out there in gas stations. And all of a sudden, when they see their position going down in court, they come forward and change the liquor ordinance. They come forward and opt out of the Gaming Act. So I think there's a lot more to be said on this. We'll get into a lot more detail as we get into the public hearings, but we certainly appreciate the opportunity to appear before you this evening, and we look forward to moving through the process and bringing this up for a final determination before the Village of Tinley Park. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, just some clarification on the public comment. If it switched to the beginning, would public comment just be restricted to what's on the agenda?
No, there's no restrictions on comments, but
Okay, so
past
like,
practice has been that it's addressed to village business.
say like, if I wanted to ask a question, what's going on with anything new on the plaza, the mental health center, the security cameras around town, so I would be okay to ask that?
Yes.
Okay, I was just mixed up, so, and actually, like Trustee Glatz says, I didn't even plan on asking anything tonight, but then the more I heard, I was a little confused. I thought it was just gonna be exactly only on the agenda, but
No, it's just
other village business?
simply moving public comment that you currently have to the front end of the agenda, whether it be before consent agenda or after the consent agenda, somewhere in that area. And it'd be the same thing that you have at the end of the meeting currently.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Just a quick couple questions. The Oak Park Avenue playbook, the $350,000 for 3 years, correct? Is that what's slated? Anyone?
Staff, I don't know if you want to firm that up.
It's in the budget. It's approved in the budget for this year.
Okay. And how is that being funded? Through the general fund or through a TIF?
Well, right now, it's being funded through the general fund, but, as we develop TIF revenues, then obviously.
But it can't be funded now through a TIF from the start?
But we have to have TIF revenue, so that's it.
Well, can't money from one TIF be transferred to another? Isn't that allowable as long as it's some kind of border?
It is, but
Okay.
there's other.
All right.
Yeah,
I just,
yes.
that was
Yes.
it about that. And I too believe that whatever, it needs to, the Oak Park Avenue playbook needs to be put on hold. We need police officers. You're doing it backwards. You don't want to be opening new businesses and creating density without enough police. It's backwards, how you're looking at this. I did like what you said about hopefully with some more of the gaming revenue being able to offer or hire more police officers. Has anybody looked into, and I had brought it up before, the federal COPS program with the grants? Has it been applied for? They can pay up to 75% of 3 officers for 3 years.
Is the chief
Anybody?
here? I don't think he's here at this point. He was here.
There he
Okay.
is.
Oh, there he is.
Could someone?
Chowing down on something to eat.
Okay. Could someone remind him to have
Certainly.
maybe someone do that? I mean, maybe we won't get anything, maybe we will, but it certainly is worth the time and effort to fill
There's-
out the forms to do.
There has been discussion for alternate ways to fund additional police staffing.
Okay.
Chief, there was a memo that you sent out to the board, or you sent out to the manager, referencing different strike force, DEA, different programs that were in place in previous years and underneath different administrations nationally that allowed for additional funding to be shared amongst communities.
Right.
The general analysis coming back from that has been that it's not as extensive in the dollar amounts that to offset the additional cost of a police officer. There's additional analysis that we're still looking for, I think, and the chief is certainly working on that.
Okay.
We have been reviewing that. So.
Okay. So last night and then again today, I heard the word bonds being thrown out there. I am going to strongly suggest, if that is even discussed, that go for binding referendum. I don't believe, even though you are elected officials, that you should have that vote. That has to go to the citizens. If you're going to be issuing bonds, that is going to be millions of dollars. And we're the ones paying it back. So going forward, if that is even discussed for any type of large project, I will fight tooth and nail that go to referendum. And as far as public comment is concerned, being moved, I prefer how it is. I think a couple times now we've gotten the off-microphone comments about how it needs to be changed. I believe that's just to be able to control the public comment. Sometimes it gets nasty up here, and I'll be the first one to admit it. Comes with the territory, folks. You can either take it or not take it. You don't have to be up there. You can choose to leave. You know, this is our time to speak to you. And I said it before that there are many times where I'm not going to say anything, but all of a sudden there's a discussion going on and I have questions or a comment or whatever it may be, that by moving it to the end of the meeting, it changes the dynamics. I think it creates a very disorganized, confusing meeting. And I personally think you're just trying to deflect. Oh, and before I forget, and I had no opinion whatsoever about the car wash, the Lenny's, until I heard these people speak. I can only say if I were in their shoes and I lived across the street, I'd be sitting right with them. I 100% agree with these people. And just because a judge ruled that something was legal doesn't make it morally correct.
There's no one else to, one more?
Hello, Dale Carlson, 7450 Lakeside Drive. I'd just like to clarify a little bit about when they talk about traffic and congestion. When these people talk about traffic, it's about the people doing 40, 50 miles an hour down a residential street. I worked with Bill Carlson many years ago just to get speed limit signs on our street. And we put them up and we put 30. And before we even got all 30 in, we went back and made it 25. We couldn't go any lower than, we weren't supposed to go any lower than 30, but somehow we got them down to 25. Now we have Brookside Glen at the end of the block and it's 20 there. And there's really no difference between the neighborhood. We're not rural area. We have houses. If you look at that picture again, this is a residential area. That's what all these people are complaining about. This is a resident. If you show an aerial view of the other one at 88th Avenue and 191st Street, there's nothing around there. It doesn't butt up against residential houses. And I've had little kids. My kids are all starting to get old. I don't have to worry about them anymore, but that was a pet peeve of mine, is when they're doing 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, and they don't care. And now we got the gas station with the Dunkin' Donuts. They're all zipping there in the morning to get their Dunkin' Donuts, because I follow them every day when I go to work. They fly down the street, and they don't need gas every day. They're going to the drive-thru to get their Dunkin' Donuts. And I'm all about business and making some money, but when it affects the daily life of all these people in the area and all the time and effort, I feel this guy's pain here. This is just ripping a scab off a wound that has not healed yet. And I hope you guys have more seats here, because we can fill this place. And I'm not making any threats. I just know that we can get the neighborhood back like we did before. But people, we're just so tired and tired. He doesn't get this, but he gets it. He doesn't get this, but he gets it. Goes on and on and on and on. I have a feeling he's going to get his liquor license in another 5-10 years, or he gets everything he wants sooner or later. Because we can't just come to these meetings every single night for year after year after year. And it's very frustrating. But I just wish you guys would just listen to our voices once. Thank you.
Thanks. There's no one else like to make a motion to adjourn the committee of whole meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
We'll take like a 2-minute recess for bathroom?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Change the camera.
Yeah, then we can do camera angles and anything.